Jai Siya Ram to everybody. Har Har Mahadeva Har. Okay, thank you for the summary. I hope you are still keen after 2 weeks of break. Yeah, Hanumanji is still here. So we're going to go into Yuddha Kand, also sometimes called Lanka Kand. So Yuddha, as you know, means Yuddh, fighting. So we're ready to watch the Yuddh. Okay, so this one is an exciting Kand, very significant one, and full of energy and action. Let's go into it. Okay. So as you know, we're at the shore currently, and Ram and Lakshman and the whole army walk from where they're waiting now towards the shore. The whole army is there. They're making so much noise, going through the forest, moving down south. Now they reach the shore, and they've asked for help to get across the ocean, as we've discussed. But what Ramchandra feels is that it's a perfect time to do puja before something very significant. So with his own hands, Bhagwan Ram creates what's called a Parthiv Ling, which is out of the mud, out of the ground there. And he makes a Shivling, as you can see in the picture, and he does puja to it. The katha behind this is very detailed. Even there's description that they needed a Brahman to come and do the puja, and they asked Ravan to come over. I know this is unusual to hear, but this is a katha from Treta Yuga, so many years ago. So there was different behaviors then. So yeah, so here's Mahadev. He is known as Rameshwaram. So the Ishwar of Ram, Ishwar, the god of who Ramchandra prays to, yeah, and who Shivji also prays to Ramchandra. So it's a very special linga, and so it's worth visiting when you get a chance. So the puja was done wonderfully, and they sought the blessings of Shivji. What happens next? Okay, so they have to go across the ocean, and as you know, this whole process was led by two special monkeys called Nal and Neel, who are brothers. Now they were cursed. I don't know if we discussed this last time, but they were cursed that anything that they throw in the water will always float. That's because they were cursed by Rishi. And what they used to do is they used to pick up the Rishi's puja items like shaligram, etc., and throw it into the river for fun. And then one day when the Rishi was thinking, why is my things missing? He would find that they were being mischievous. So he cursed them to say, anything you throw will never sink. So they were the perfect people to create this bridge. But what they did is there's something extra special. Was on each rock, they wrote Sri Ram or Ram. And as they placed the rock on the ocean, it magically floated. It's so famous. And that's because it had Ramchandra's energy in there and his blessings, that's why. And Ramchandra's name is very, very powerful. And it helps people cross the ocean of life, as they say, yeah? So you will come across this as you read more. So the rocks were floating, and they packed them up very nicely, engineered perfectly, and everybody helped. It was a great teamwork, a big effort. Even the little squirrels, there's stories of little squirrels helping, etc., to fill the gaps with the small rocks. Yeah. So the construction was perfect, and then they were ready to cross the ocean. That was the aim of this project. Even though, as you know, the monkeys were big, the bears were big and heavy. So the ocean, all the big animals like the whales and the sharks and all the animals from underneath wanted to take darshan of Sri Ram. So they all came to the surface and they offered their seva by offering their backs to the army. And the army walked across the bridge, very, very heavy. And they walked across the animals as well on the side of the bridge. So here's the army. You can see it was huge. There's hundreds and thousands and millions of bears and monkeys, of different sizes. Remember, Hanumanji was only one of the smallest. The rest were very, very big and ferocious. And they had a wonderful time. They were chanting, Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram, look all the way across the ocean. And they crossed with no effort whatsoever. Now, meanwhile, if we look at what happened in Lanka, Mandodari, who is the wife of Ravan, she is obviously worried about the consequences of the enemy coming across the ocean so easily, effortlessly. Remember, they had Vibhishan on their side as well. She went to Ravan, her husband, as a loving wife and said, Ravan, look, I fear that we are doing the wrong thing and you must return Sita. It's only for your own benefit. But typically, as Ravan is strong, he's arrogant, yeah, he's full of confidence, overconfidence maybe, so that he was not scared whatsoever. In fact, what he did is he went to his music hall, as kings have their own entertainment palaces. There, every night, there would be dancing, music, artistry, etc. So he went there and sat down in his throne to enjoy the entertainment on top of a mountain. This was at night time, okay? He did not listen to Mandodari whatsoever. By this time, Shriram, Lakshman, Sugriv, Vibhishan, Hanumanji, Angad, all the generals and all the monkeys were waiting on Mount Suvel. Okay, so that is the mountain which is outside the fortress of Lanka. So you can imagine there's Lanka, the island, then there's the fortress in the middle, and then Mount Suvel, because Lanka is covered with mountains. So they were resting there. And Shriram, I'll give you a description, is lying on the lap of Sugriv and he's twisting his arrow. As a warrior does, just thinking. He was lying down resting. And Lakshman and Hanumanji are there, fanning him, looking after him. But that evening of entertainment, there was a flash of lightning in the air, what looked like lightning. So it was a dark night, but yet there was these flashes of light. So Ramchandra turned to Vibhishan. Vibhishan, what is this? What's all this unexpected light? At this point, Vibhishan said, Prabhu, this is coming from Ravan's entertainment hall on that mountain over there. So at this point, Shriram decided to send a warning to Ravan that he's here, the enemy is on his doorstep. So he fitted an arrow and shot a single arrow. And amazing, it went straight to that entertainment hall. It chopped off Ravan's umbrella, royal umbrella. It chopped off Mandodari's shining earrings from which that lightning was coming, essentially. And he knocked off some of Ravan's crowns and it returned back to Shriram. He had a special ability to have that arrow. Once he fired it, it would come back, okay, into his quiver. No one was hurt, but it really scared Mandodari. And no one saw what happened. It happened so fast, so skillful is Ramchandra's arrow. Yeah. So Mandodari took it as a bad omen. But do you think Ravan did? No, he wasn't scared at all, typically. Next, what did Ramchandra do? He advised Angad, who is the son of Vali. You remember him from Sundarkand? He's a brave. He's just like his father, very strong, very brave. He's like a lion, not scared of anything. He said, Angad, I'd like you to go and make a warning to Ravan and let him know and give him another chance. Try and talk him out of this. So Angad says, yes, Prabhu. And he fearlessly went into Ravan's courtyard and then into his palace, and he killed whoever was in his way. Now, when Angad went into the courtyard, can you imagine what happened? All his ministers just stood up, out of fear. And they thought, oh no, that monkey is back, the one that created the fire. So they thought Hanumanji was back. So they all got scared. When Ravan saw that his people were scared, he got angry and says, gosh, why are you standing up? He's just a single monkey. Now, Angad had no fear because he had the blessings of Shriram. As a messenger, he's supposed to be offered courtesy, like a seat. He's supposed to be offered certain levels of respect back in the day. Now, he wasn't even offered a seat. So Angad magically made his tail bigger, as you can, and he sat on his own tail, but he sat on a level higher than Ravan. Yeah? Who are you, monkey? Shouted Ravan. Identify yourself. There's Angad. You can see him. He's so brave, so boisterous. Yeah. So Angad reminded Ravan, hey, Ravan, I'm the son of Vali, the brave Vali. Now, Vali was a very special monkey because anybody he fought, he would absorb half of their power. And Vali at one point even took Ravan under his armpit and just held him there for 6 months. Vali was extremely powerful. Yet Ramchandra did kill him in the Kishkinda Kand, if you remember, just before Sundarkand. So he boasts that, yes, I'm the son of Vali. And then Ravan boasts, yes, but don't you know who I am? I'm like the Lord of all three worlds. Yeah, I'm full of strength. Yeah, who do you think you are? So then Angad reminds Ravan, yeah, that Hanumanji, the monkey that set his whole Lanka on fire, was one of the smallest in their army, just to make a point that, he caused so much destruction, yet you're dealing with, many, many more monkeys to come. Yeah. This was angering Ravan, as you can expect. Seize the monkey, he says, capture him. Yeah. And when you capture him, capture all the monkeys and the bears and Ram and Lakshman. That's what Ravan says. So then, at this point, Ravan says, when he mentioned Ramchandra, Angad got really angry. And he stomped his foot on the ground. And he says, hey, Ravan, if you or anybody in this court can lift my foot, then Sita can remain with you. That is how confident Angad was making a promise like this. Can you imagine how much pressure there was? So Meghnad, who's also his name is Indrajit. Yeah, so Meghnad means, Meg means thunder, and Nad means sound. So he's just got this presence or energy about him. Meghnad he's called, but he also conquered Indra, so he's called Indrajit. He came along, and he's Ravan's one of his eldest son and his most powerful son. So he came, tried to lift up Angad's foot, and he tried and he failed and he walked away. Then came many, many other warriors. They tried to lift Angad's foot, but again, they all failed out of embarrassment and went back to sit on their seat. Then finally, Ravan decided to go down, and he approached Angad. But at that moment, Angad moved his foot away to insult Ravan and said, listen, Ravan, why don't you go and hold the feet of Sri Ram? Why are you holding mine? I'm just a servant. Yeah. So at that point, Ravan's pride was squashed, that he didn't even get a chance to have a go at this challenge. Now, Angad quickly returns back to Sri Ram and tells him the whole story. Now, meanwhile, what was happening in the Ashok Vatika where Sita Mata was waiting? Yeah. Ravan was mildly scared that his enemy had come, although he wouldn't admit it. So he appeared with a Rakshasi called Vidyujuha. And she was a person who could do lots and lots of tricks. Yeah. So they are demons, so they can do all sorts of illusions. He informed Sita that Ramchandra and whole his army had been killed in battle. And they produced an illusionary head of Ramchandra on a plate, yeah, with bows and arrows. And Sita saw this because it was so convincing, and she fell unconscious, as you can imagine. She was so upset. When she regained consciousness, however, she asked Ravan, oh, Ravan, just kill me. I don't want this. She believed the illusion so much that she said, oh, just kill me. I want to be with Ramchandra wherever he is. But as you know, Ravan was playing bluff. He was not going to kill Sita, and he was lying. After Ravan went, a demoness called Sarama assured Sita that Sri Ram was still alive, so she became relaxed again. Now was the time to take action. Sri Ram called his counselors, Vibhishan, Sugriv, all the big monkeys, everybody together, saying, look, Lanka has 4 gates, the actual fortress. How shall we penetrate the gates? So essentially the fighting was going to start now. The monkeys and bears marched forward with mountains. They just picked up mountains very easily, like rocks, trees, and used their claws as weapons. Remember, they didn't have many weapons themselves, like swords and arrows and things like that. They didn't have them. They were totally fearless and jumped everywhere. As monkeys are, very scary monkeys are. And they were shouting, Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram. And they started throwing rocks and boulders at Lanka, the fort, to try and break down the doors. Now, from the west gate appeared Meghnad. Meghnad, as we've just heard his name. Now, Hanumanji, when he came, smashed his chariot, because when you smash your chariot, you can't get any further, and wounded him so much. So this was like the first round. Meghnad had a scary experience with Meghnad, and he went back to his house. Now, Angad and Hanumanji were both very, very mighty, and they worked as a team throughout the whole of the Yuddha. One would hit somebody, they would pass it to the other one would tie them up or beat them up. So they worked in a team, like throwing a ball, like a football, between each other. So this is the description in the Ramayan. And what they did is they used to grab the generals and used to throw them for fun to the feet of Sri Ram, so that Sri Ram would be able to bless them. Yeah. So this was the purpose. And when they would land at the feet of Sri Ram, Vibhishan would then identify and say, "Hey, Prabhu, this is so and so. This is so and so. This is so and so," which is a very nice way of dying. And then Sri Ram would then bless them, and they went to heaven. Sri Ram would accept them, that, oh, they came to do my service. They have fallen at my feet. So he would bless them. So this is, again, a wonderful quality of Sri Ramachandra. Nobody would do this, just him. There were two other generals. Now, Ravan had many, many generals. I cannot name all of them because they all had significance, because we don't have a lot of time to go into each and every one of them. But two main ones was Akampan and Atikaya. Yeah. So Akampan means one who does not shake. Kampan means to shake, but Akampan means he's never scared of anything. And Atikaya, he did not have a body. Atikaya, yeah, so Kaya means body. They came along. They were one of two of Ravan's big generals. Now they used lots of illusions, yeah. And what kind of illusions were they? They would make the sky dark so no one could see each other. And what they would do, these demons, is they throw blood from the sky like rain. Can you imagine what that would be like? And hairs and all sorts of dirty things. And it'll shower on all the monkeys and everything. So it'll cover their eyes. They wouldn't know what's going on, and it'll cause panic. So seeing this, Sri Ramchandra would release just a single arrow, because it was full of mantras, these arrows, and they would have the power to disperse the illusion completely. So while Ramchandra is in the background, he's watching what's happening and helps out where he can. So the fighting would continue. But at this point, there was so much fighting that even nearly half the demons in Ravan's army had been vanquished, all killed. So that's how much activity there was going on. Now, Meghnad was still on the scene, yeah? And he decided, right, Father, I'm going to go out on the battlefield again. And Ravan's confidence was boosted, saying, yes, he will finish them off. So as Meghnad came onto the battlefield, where are the two brothers, Ram, Lakshman? Where are they? Show me. Where is Vibhishan, the traitor? So Vibhishan was his uncle, remember? But because he acted as a traitor in the eyes of Ravan, even Meghnad is rude enough to say, where is that traitor? However, Meghnad was in such, what's the right word, fury, that he's killing millions of monkeys, endlessly. And Hanumanji, being one of the generals, saw this, and he challenged Meghnad to a fight. But guess what happened? Meghnad now is really scared of Hanumanji. First off, in the Sundarkand, yeah, he caused the problems. And earlier, as soon as Meghnad came out, as you heard, he smashed his chariot and wounded him. So Meghnad did not want to engage in any fight. However, Meghnad did call for Sri Ram, said, I want to fight Sri Ram. Again, as a demon, what did he do? Meghnad went up in the air. He could go in the air. He could go down in the ground, go anywhere. He could double in size. He could multiply himself. He went up and he released lots of dust so no one could see anything, like a big storm. And within that, lots of hair and blood. Can you imagine how disgusting that is? So this is what the demons would do. Now, at this point, Lakshman wanted to do his brother's seva. So he said, Prabhu Ram, Bhaiya, can I go and fight? And then Ramchandra gave his blessing and said, yes, go ahead. So Meghnad and Lakshman, both equal in strength. Yeah. They had a fight. And they were fighting furiously. And Lakshman fought him so hard that Meghnad was nearly dead, nearly there. However, at the last minute, when maybe Lakshman's attention wasn't there, Meghnad threw a javelin, like a spear, at Lakshman's chest and knocked him to the ground. Now, this is the funny thing where they wanted to lift Lakshman up and take him back to Lanka, maybe as a form of blackmail. But because Lakshman is Sheshnag, so he is the Shesh, the seat of Bhagwan Vishnu, he was so heavy that he could not move him. However, Hanumanji could move him, and he did so. So back in the army, Ramchandra is saying, "Where is Lakshman? I have not seen him. How is he?" And then Hanumanji brings him, but Lakshman is unconscious. And Shriram is overcome by emotion. What has happened to my brother? My strong brother. And he was really worried. You remember, Ramchandra is an emotional person. Although he's strong and courageous, he has a very soft heart. Now, Jambavant, who is the most wise bear, as you can remember, in the beginning of Sundarkan, he had advised Hanumanji, "Hanumanji, you are the one who can fly over the ocean." So Jamvanji acts as a guru, the person who has got lots of wisdom. And he says, "Hanumanji, there's a doctor in Lanka and he should be called." So what does Hanumanji do in the middle of the night? He goes and fetches Sushen, the doctor. But what's wonderful is Hanumanji doesn't do small things like that. He bought him in his whole house. You can see the little picture at the bottom. It makes me laugh. So Sushen then comes to the battlefield and advises Hanumanji, "Hanumanji, please can you go to fetch this special herb called Sanjeevani." So Sanjeevani means that it can revive somebody's life. And it's from a distant mountain, so you'll have to fly there now quickly. And it's nighttime. And at nighttime, there's many demons. Demons' powers increase at nighttime, so you must be careful. However, as you know, a spy is always around, and he told Ravan all these details. Now, what does Ravan do? Ravan knows that if he stops Hanumanji, then there's a good chance Lakshman will die. And if Lakshman dies, there's a good chance that Ramchandra may also die as such. And then the whole army will just disappear. So Ravan speaks to a demon he knows called Kalnemi. Oh, please excuse me, my batteries are running out. Maaf kijiye. Okay, so he speaks to a demon called Kalnemi to kill Hanumanji. Now, Kalnemi is very wise. Kalnemi reminded Ravan again that, look, Hanumanji is the servant of Bhagwan. So Bhagwan is Ramachandra. And Ravan should make peace with Sri Ram. However, Ravan typically got angry again and threatened to kill Kalnemi. Now, do you remember in the Balkan where we had the story of Marich? Again, Ravan asked him to do something and he was advised, please don't do this. But because Ravan gets angry on these guys, they just think, I'd rather die at the hands of Shriram or his servant. So Kalnemi agreed to hatch a plan to stop Hanumanji reaching his goal. Now, what did Kalnemi do? So Kalnemi managed to get on the route that Hanumanji was flying in advance, and he, with his illusion, created a lake, as you can see in that picture. He created a nice lake, and he himself disguised himself as a hermit, like a person who doesn't have a home, who is always on the go, a hermit, right? As Hanumanji was flying over, he decided to have a drink of water and re-energize himself, okay? Now, Hanumanji is clever. He knows that there's something up, so it's not by accident, So he went down and he asked the hermit, I'd like to have some water to drink. And the hermit, Kalnemi, offered him his water pot. Now, Hanumanji saw this and says, oh, Maharaj, this is not enough for me. Can I take a dip in the lake? So he says, yes, please take a dip in the lake, no problem. As Hanumanji got in the lake, an alligator grabbed his foot, as you can see in the picture. And as she grabbed the foot, obviously Hanumanji had to free himself. And in the process, she left her body. She died. But she appeared as a angel, if you like. She was a heavenly girl who was cursed to become an alligator. Now, she thanked Hanumanji for freeing her. And as in return for his service, she told him that please, Hanumanji, watch out for Kalnemi. He is a demon and he was sent by Ravan. He's up to no good. Hanumanji thanked her, and then he approached Kalnemi after he had a drink and after he washed his body, and he twisted his tail around his head and killed Kalnemi. But what was wonderful is Kalnemi died chanting Shriram, Shriram, Shriram. So he attained a wonderful state. So this was the katha of Kalnemi. Now Hanumanji had to carry on his mission. So he continued his journey to the mountain. But when he got there, it was full of herbs. Now Hanumanji was confused at that time. This is very, very famous. I think everybody knows this katha. So he could not identify. So what did he decide to do? He decided to lift the whole mountain and brought it back to where Lakshman was injured. On his way, he flew across Ayodhya. So that means that the mountain was definitely in the Himalayas or somewhere up north. So as he flew over Ayodhya at night time, Bharat Maharaj, who is the brother of Sri Ram, as you know, he was in charge of Ayodhya, but he was living as a sadhu in Nandigram. So he was sitting there chanting Ram, 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 Ram. And then he all of a sudden saw this big being in the sky. Because he's the acting king, he had to defend Ayodhya. So he picked up his bow and arrow. Now remember, he's just as brave as Ram and Lakshman. They're all brothers, skilled in fighting and all sorts. So he fitted a suitable arrow and he fired it towards Hanumanji. And that arrow hit Hanumanji and he became unconscious and fell to the ground. That's how powerful Bharat Maharaj is. Now, as Hanumanji is lying down, he's not waking up, but he's chanting Ram, Ram. So Bharatji knows, who is this person? Must be special if he's chanting Ram, Ram. So as he eventually wakes up, Hanumanji tells him the whole story that Lakshman is injured, this is what's happened, Sita has been kidnapped, etc. Bharat then offers to send Hanumanji back on his arrow. So he says, Hanumanji, you can sit on my arrow and I will send you to Lanka straight away with no effort for you. At this point, Hanumanji agrees to fly alone and says, I will manage this myself, but thank you very much for your service. And as he's flying, he's thinking of Bharatji, thinking what a wonderful person Bharatji is and how similar he is to Ramchandra. Eventually, Hanumanji reaches the scene, but it's past midnight, so Ramchandra is getting very, very worried. But as Hanumanji comes, everybody cheers. Sri Ram is stroking Lakshman's head and he's very emotional because, remember, Lakshman came to give service to Sri Ram and he was worried that if Lakshman does not make it, what will he tell Mother Sumitra? He was so worried. And when someone cares for you, gives you service, it's natural that you would feel protective over them. And it was his brother, younger brother. Anyway, just as Hanumanji reaches the battlefield, Sushen, the doctor, applies the herb after he identifies it on the mountain, and instantly Lakshman wakes. It's a wonderful medicine, and everyone rejoices, even Ramchandra. Then Hanumanji drops Sushen with his house back to Lanka. Okay, so Hanumanji is giving us a lesson there, so that if we take a book from the shelf, or if we, have something, take something, always put it back as you took it. Now, let's go into another part of the katha. So at this point, Ravan understands that Lakshman was saved. So all these plans are not working. And now he's getting stressed. So what does he do? He calls on his brother Kumbhakaran. Now, we talked about Kumbhakaran in the very, very first week, that when he was offered a boon by Brahmaji, the Devtas made his tongue ask for Nidrasan, not Indrasan. So that, as you can see, he's lying down and he has to sleep for 6 months. But when Ravan came, they had to wake him prematurely, which means before his natural waking time. And look at that picture. All these people are pinching him. They're trying to wake him up with drums. Elephants are climbing on him, horses, but he's not waking up. They're having to try so hard. But eventually he does wake up, okay? And Kumbhakaran does pranam to Ravan, his older brother, and Ravan tells him the whole story and why he's woken him up. Now, Kumbhakaran again advises Ravan, I don't think you did a very good job by stealing somebody's wife. You should return her. But then he also feels a sense of duty towards his brother. Now, Kumbhakaran is then fed many, many buffaloes and wine. He's not vegetarian. And he becomes crazy, So, Kumbhakaran goes into battle. And when he goes onto the battlefield, the first thing Vibhishan does as his younger brother is does pranam. And he says, Bhagwan Ram, this is my brother Kumbhakaran. And he identifies him. Straight away, Hanumanji is in and Kumbhakaran, and they have a fight. As you can see in the picture, Kumbhakaran is eating the monkeys and he's stamping on them and he's killing millions of them because of the sheer size of his body. What does he do? He actually at this point grabs Sugriv, Maharaj Sugriv, in his hands and he's crushing so many monkeys. Now Sugriv manages to slip out of his hands and bites off Kumbhakaran's nose and ears before returning to Sri Ram. So can you imagine how scary Kumbhakaran would be looking with blood pouring from his nose and ears? And he was feeling a lot of pain. Now Sri Ram then now takes over the fight, okay? Not Lakshman. And he flies 100,000 arrows in every direction, to confuse Kumbhakaran. Kumbhakaran is now getting angrier, and he's looking scary. Now comes a point after the fight that Sri Ram strikes off Kumbhakaran's arms and fills his mouth with arrows. Then eventually, Ramchandra takes an arrow and shoots off his head. So now there's no head, no arms, nothing. And his body is still wobbling towards Sri Ram. Can you imagine how scary that is? Next, he threw the last arrow and cut his huge body into two. And he fell on the ground. But his soul entered Sri Ram because, again, anybody who sees Sri Ram, anybody who interacts with Sri Ram, even fights Sri Ram, always has a good destination because they are associating with Bhagwan. Well, I must remind you that obviously Kumbhakaran is one of the two. We talked about Jay and Vijay in the very first week. So he's one of them. I'm not sure if he's Jay or Vijay, but he's Bhagwan's Dwarpal, his gatekeeper. So he's also already known to Sri Ram. And he's playing the role of a demon so that this act can take place. So that's why he deserved to go back to heaven. It's very, very nice story. So they already know each other. Now Meghnad comes out again. Remember, this is the third time he's coming. And this time he uses what's called a Nagapash. This is a very famous katha because this Nagapash is made up of millions of snakes. And Pash means to tie. It's like a bondage, Nagpash. So Nag is obviously snakes. When he releases this phenomenal arrow, it makes Sri Ram and Lakshman unconscious and they stop breathing essentially and they'll fall to the ground. Can you imagine what the bears and monkeys must be thinking at this point? So then comes Garud Maharaj. Garud is the vehicle of Bhagwan Vishnu, and he comes and releases all these snakes, and Ram and Lakshman come back to life essentially because an eagle, his food is a snake, so that's why he was the perfect person for this. Now, quickly moving through, as soon as Ram and Lakshman were attacked, Jamban became extremely angry and he ran after Meghnad, even though he's old, and he fiercely attacked him. And he attacked him so much, and Meghnad again had to go back home. Now, Meghnad eventually recovered from this attack, but he was too ashamed to face Ravan, so he wanted to get extra special powers. And he went to do a yagya in a cave all by himself. Now, if he was successful, he would become almost invincible. So Vibhishan, through his spy network, comes to know this. And he tells Sri Ram that this is what's going to happen. So Sri Ram then instructs Lakshman, Angad, and the others to go and wreck the yagya. Now, initially, they weren't able to move Meghnad. He was so determined, even if they kicked him or whatever. Eventually, they managed to do it and distract him. Now, Meghnad's yagna was incomplete and he was weak. Yeah. The fight between him and Lakshman continued, and it was fierce fighting, as you can imagine. But this time, things were going to be different. Thinking of Sri Ram in his heart, Lakshman let off a fantastic arrow and he hit Meghnad in the chest and he dies, which was wonderful. Now, Hanumanji lifts his body out of respect and places him in Lanka, takes him and puts him in the palace. Now, on hearing his death, Ravan is so upset. I mean, it's his favorite son, and he fell to the ground unconscious. Mandodari, as his mum, was very naturally sad to see her son dead. But everybody now pointed their finger at Ravan and blamed him. You know, why are you making these bad decisions? Why don't you give Sita back? Now, who's left? Only Ravan, because the king always goes last. Now, he got ready for the battle in his chariot, etc. But he took no notice of the bad omens. You know, there was like vultures and there was bad weather and all sorts of things. But he just went. The monkeys used to come and they used to kick Ravan and run away because with their speed, that's how they would distract him and weaken him. Now, first was Lakshman to fight with Ravan. However, Ravan hit him so hard that Lakshman fell to the ground and Ravan again tried to steal him. However, Lakshman was simply too heavy. Next was Hanumanji. Hanumanji has a fight with Ravan. Hanumanji and Ravan had a fight in the air, okay? And then eventually they came down to the ground. Now Ravan felt very weak. He thought, I need to do something a bit extra. So what does he do? He decides to conduct a sacrifice to gain special powers himself, the same as Meghnad. Vibhishan finds out and he tells Sri Ram. And again, Ram says, please go and destroy it. Hanumanji, Angad, etc. They went to the palace of Ravan. And even though Angad was kicking Ravan, Ravan did not move. He was that determined to finish his sacrifice. However, they did manage to destroy the sacrifice. And Ravan again came back on the battlefield. At this point, the Devtas up in heaven were saying, oh, Sri Ram, please let this be over now. This has gone on too long. Ravan has been such a pain for us. Please, can you finish him off? Now, Ramchandra smiled to hear the prayer because he knew the whole plan. At this point, Ravan thought, right, all my demons are dead, but there are too many monkeys. So let me use my elusive powers. So he went in the air with his chariot and he did all sorts of things. Now, Ramchandra did not have a chariot. Remember, he was just barefoot. So Indradev sent his divine chariot with 4 magical white horses and a special charioteer called Matali. Now Sri Ram accepted this gracefully and mounted the chariot. So now they were equal, okay? Ravan still employed lots of illusion. What he did, everybody was fooled by it except Sri Ram alone, okay? So, but Ramchandra, as you know, he fired an arrow and tried to clear the illusion for everybody. He's the only person who was undefeatable. Now Ravan, this is the main battle where Ravan faces Sri Ram. But Ravan, before the fight takes place, Ravan is boasting, saying, you know, I'm so strong and this and this and this and this. And then Ramchandra says, yes, but let's have your answers in action. Okay, so Ravan is the first to shoot arrows and many, many weapons. And the fight continues and it's very rough. However, when Ravan injured Matali, who was the charioteer, Sri Ram became very angry and he fired arrows that cut Ravan's charioteers, horses, chariot, and flag on top of his thing. Now, next, Sri Ram shoots 30 arrows. Why? 10 for Ravan's heads and 20 for each of his arms. Now, something strange happened. Again and again, Ramchandra would send those 30 arrows, but his heads and arms kept growing back. Again and again, Ramchandra does 30 arrows, but Ravan is not being killed. It's just not enough to chop his head off and his arms. At this point, Ramachandra looked at Vibhishan as if to ask for advice and said, Vibhishan, what's going on? Please help me out here. So at this point, Vibhishan tells Ramachandra that there is life nectar in Ravan's belly button, in his navel. So if you hit there, he will certainly die. Okay, now they did not want to hit his heart because Ramchandra knew that Sita was in his heart. So he did not shoot him in the heart. So at this point, Sri Ram changes his idea And instead of 30 arrows, he shoots 31, 10 for his heads, 20 for his arms, and one specifically for his belly button. And he lets off these fantastic arrows and they shoot Ravan. And finally, boom, he's gone. Ravan is hit and he falls to the ground, shouting, Ram, Ram, he's chanting. Remember, he is also Bhagwan Vishnu's gatekeeper, Jay, OVJ, one of them. And Bhagwan, his soul enters Ramchandra's body. Vibhishan, as the emotional brother, he was really upset. As you can expect, he did not want his brother to die like this, and he didn't want he was a saintly person, Vibhishan, so he still felt very emotional. Now Lakshman comforts him and says everything will be okay. Now, as you know, somebody had to take over Lanka, and Ramchandra had already pronounced that you will be Lankesh. He used to call Vibhishan Lankesh, which means the king of Lanka, many like days before Ravan was killed. He instructed Lakshman, Lakshman, can you go into Lanka? Because I cannot enter any kingdom and conduct the ceremony, the coronation. So Lakshman goes and acts as a priest, Brahmin, and conducts the coronation of Vibhishan, and he becomes Lankesh, proper Lankesh. Now, final few steps is that Shri Ram then tells Hanumanji, go and tell Sita quickly and tell her the good news, but don't bring her back. I have that seva is for Angad and Vibhishan. So he says to Angad and Vibhishan, Angad, can you go and escort Sita, not with the transport, like the palanquin. I want her to walk so that all the monkeys can have darshan of Sita Mata and take her blessings. So, as you know, before she left, all the demonesses became friends with Sita Mata. They washed her, they clothed her, they offered her beautiful jewelry before she appeared in front of Shri Ram. Now, as you remember back in one of the kathas, maybe it was Sundakan, Kishkindakan, yes, Kishkindakan, where Ramchandra said, right, Sita, I'm about to conduct my Leela, as in we're about to enact the killing of Ravan. So he asked Agnidev to protect the real Sita, and Agnidev then gave the shadow Sita. So the Sita that was in Lanka was not the real Sita, she was a shadow. Okay, so at this point, Ramchandra asked Lakshman, can you light a fire and we'll call Agnidev? So they call Agnidev, and Agnidev gracefully handed over Krishna, the real Sita Mata. Wonderful scene because Ramchandra and Sita are finally together again, and the Devata showered wonderful prayers and showered flowers from the heavens. Final couple of slides. Shri Ram then instructs Hanumanji to go and see Bharat, but disguised as a Brahman, and tell him that we are on our way, because Bharat was so sensitive and emotional and full, he was so devotional to Ramchandra that any moment, even a second late, and Bharat would give up his life. He was so devoted to Ramchandra. So they call the Pushpak Viman, which is the special aeroplane that belongs to Kuber, which Ravan stole, remember? Now Pushpak Viman expands so it could fit the whole army. So Ramchandra invited all of them aboard and all the generals, etc. So they came, Hanuman, Lakshman, Angad, Sugir, Jaman, Vibhishan, many others. They got on board and they flew to Ayodhya. But on the way, like a tour, Ramchandra will show Sita Mata, oh, Sita, look, this is where this happened. Oh, Sita, look, this is where Lakshman fell. Oh, look, Sita, this is where this happened. And she was enjoying the journey. Now, the plane also stopped in various places where there were rishis, like Rishi Atri, there was many other rishis. And Sita and Ram would go and take their blessings again. They'd already met them in the past. They stopped at Chitrakoot, where they lived for 13 years. So it was a very special place. And then finally, they stopped at the Triveni Sangam, which is the place where Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati come together. And that's where Ramchandra and Sita had a dip, like a holy bath, before coming to Ayodhya. Now, on the way, as you all know, the whole world knows that everybody in Ayodhya lit divas, they did rangoli, they scented, they sprayed nice scents in the street, made it very beautiful, so that when they came at night time, Sita and Ram and Lakshman will be able to see the way. It was the dark night, as you know. And there you go. So they arrived in the Pushpak Viman, and everybody was there to greet them. Everybody was so joyous. It's indescribable how happy and joyous it was. The same feeling we get every Diwali, which is the Ramchandra, the life of the people, the wonderful personality of Ramchandra, Sita, back in their lives so they can see them with their eyes, they can hear them. And Ramchandra did something very special, which was to divide himself up into millions of people. And people felt that Ramchandra was meeting them on a one-to-one basis, like personally. So it was a very special moment for them. And we'll discuss more about that next week when we talk about the Uttarakhand, which is the last Kand. Now, the challenge is to this week. So when you're sitting at home with your family, so I want you to discuss which parts of this Yuddha Kand, Lanka Kand was most exciting to you and discuss it as a family. Okay, very simple, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even all week if you want to, you can discuss how exciting this katha was. So on that note, I end the Yuddha Kand. Har Har Mahadeva Har